Your grand rising. What's up, everybody? How you doing? This is your coach Renz, and welcome to Deconstructing Christianity. I will be your host and guide tonight as we talk about the contradictions in this birth story. As with all things, if the Jesus story is not true, then why do people believe this nonsense? I'll give about 5 minutes for people to get on. I want to thank everybody who supports the channel that way, those who support the channel by buying cigars for the La Angelina that my wife rolls, and as well as all the members like Wrath, what's up, member on YouTube, as well as subscription holders on Facebook. Plan on having a great night. Gotta get the steak ready. If you're watching this later, just skip to 5 minutes or so. Just skip to the 5 minute mark. Somewhere around in there, we get started. What up, Tim? Tim and Wrath, always on time. Like they're trying to hold a brother accountable. Got my cigar, got my coffee. For those who were a part of the seminar yesterday, that was a great seminar, if I say so myself. Oh, y'all missed it. Y'all missed it. It was a great seminar. I mean, there was so much information that was put into that seminar that if you walked away from that and you still believe, even at the slightest inkling of an emotional attachment to Noah's flood, you just want to believe the story. You would just have to believe the story if you was on that webinar last night for a total deconstruction of Noah's flood. So it was great. It was great. It was great. Y'all just have to catch the next one, the next seminar. That one was a good thing. That's some good stuff. I actually feel like I'm an expert on Noah's flood now. After doing the seminar, I didn't realize how much information that I have had over the years, that when I put it all together, of how much information. And I actually, for the sake of time, there was some notes that I did not even mention. Whew. It was good. It was good. But tonight, we're going to be talking about this birth story of Jesus, and I don't even understand how people still accept this story. It doesn't even make sense. But we got about 2-3 minutes before we get started, so arbitrary conversations right now. Anything want to be thrown out? If you do want to buy some of my wife's cigars, just contact me at masteringyou10@gmail.com. I ain't seen any Facebook comments yet. Is Facebook not working? Let me check the Facebook. Let me make sure. I did check the other one, make sure it was working. Let's make sure the Facebook is working. All right. Okay, the Facebook Live is working. All right. Just didn't see any comments, so I was wondering. But I see you. Of course, I posted some videos earlier today on Facebook and YouTube, so make sure you guys check those videos out. See, Sean, I understand. You gotta take care of the child first. I'm glad you like it. How you doing, Maria? I know what you're like, Maria. I know I'm supposed to be getting started. Hold on. I ain't put this one up. I know you're like this one. All the yoga knowledge one I found. That right up your alley, ain't it, Maria? Right up your alley. Right up your alley. You can't have it because it's mine. Ooh. Yeah, I got some stuff. Got some things. How you doing, Volta? Will? My youngest daughter called me smoking a cigar and fussed at me. See, that's when I would pull the I'm the parent, you the child. And then laugh at him. What's up, James? Oh, 19, that grown. So want to wish Sean's son, I think it was your son. You just said child, so I don't know if it was a boy. Want to wish Sean's youngest son a happy birthday. Happy birthday, little fella. Oh, let's get started on tonight's video. Before I get started, I want to ask the question. How many people have ever done if you've done it or if you haven't done it, answer the question either way, yes or no, yes or no's. Have you ever done a comparison between Matthew's version of the birth of Jesus and Luke's version of the birth of Jesus? How you doing, cranky pants? So that's the first question of the night. Have you ever done a comparison of Matthew versus Luke? Yep, no matter how old they get, they'll always be your children. That's right. Right. Maria said no. Cranky pants. Cranky pants. I like that name. Cranky pants said no. Will says he's listening to mine. Don't be listening. That was a short video. Tim said hit the thumbs up. James said he has. Sean said yes. Oh, yep. Like that name. Raph said he hasn't. So here's one of the things about this. If you ever, well, we're going to do a comparison tonight. But not only are we doing a comparison tonight, before I get started. What up, Dwayne? How you doing? So Dwayne signed up for the seminar last night in the middle of the seminar. So he got the link so they can watch it at a later time. And so if anybody is interested in watching that seminar, there's a way you can do it. You still got to pay for the seminar, but you just connect with me at masteringyou10 at gmail.com and we can figure out how you can watch the cigar. Marvin says they're curious. Wrath is giving y'all some good advice. Say I'm not reading the Bible anymore. I only did it to try to save me and my children's mother relationship, and it still failed. I understand that one. Right, just listening from now on. I know if I wasn't working with you guys, I probably would never read the Bible ever again. If I wasn't doing what I'm doing, I would never read it again. But because I like to guide people, that's why we're doing it. So if you compared the two, then you already know a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about. If you've never compared the two of them, in a way, if you listen to pastors, if you listen to the Jesus stories, the nativity stories, you heard the comparison, but what you heard is how people have tried to meld the two stories to make the stories into one story. When in truth, there's an impossibility to make these stories, the birth of Jesus, the biblical Jesus, into one story. There's a few things that are impossible to make the story the same. Now, this is what I want you to understand. Oh, hold on. Yes, that is why I don't try to convince people. I let them come to their rationale on their own. The Alchemist is a good read, but we got to get into the subject matter. So the subject matter tonight is a comparison of the Jesus birth story and how the Matthew and Luke versions contradict, because this is the only narrative that you have of this so-called birth story. Now, what you see every year is the pastors, the priests, everybody mixing the two stories to try to make them seem like one. Like when you see a nativity scene and you got the shepherds there and you got the animals and you got the wise men are there and the Star of David is there and all these things are all present together and you got the little baby Jesus in the manger and all that. It all makes it seem like it's one story that is one story has a little bit more information than the other story has, but it's still all the same things that's going on, just being told from two different perspectives. That's how they would make you think that it doesn't matter which version you read, but it's the same story. But when you bear down into it, when you really look at this story, you see how it's completely impossible for these two to be the same story, even and all of it based on the Bible itself. It's an impossible story. How you doing, boss lady? So I think the best way to do this is first we're going to look at the writers. You got the book of Matthew and you got the book of Luke. So of course, the book of Matthew was written anonymously. The book of Luke is also written anonymously. Now, Matthew is written and people are claiming that this is an eyewitness when we know that the book of Matthew was not an eyewitness. And we know that the book wasn't even named Matthew until around 182 to 185 by Irenaeus is the one who actually named this book, the book of Matthew. He named all of them, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Matthew is supposedly the second of the Gospels that was written, and it would have been written after 70 AD or CE. So with that being said, it is implausible that it's written by anybody named Matthew or by any eyewitness. It is written at least at minimum over 40 years later. So we know that this is hearsay, and most likely hearsay to the fifth power of hearsay. The book of Matthew also seems to copy a lot of what is written in Mark, which we know Mark wasn't written until after 70 CE, but it seems to copy Mark. It also seems to copy an unknown writing that most people call the Qlm, that many lean over and say that that's more than likely the Gospel of Thomas. So we know that this is not an eyewitness account. Matthew is written for a Jewish audience. So a lot of the themes are going to be Jewish oriented. Luke, on the other hand, is stated that it is not an eyewitness account. It's written by someone who was supposed to be a devout follower of John, I believe. Yeah, John, because Matthew is supposed to be a follower of Peter. So by a follower of John, he says that he's taking in the account of people that he's interviewed. So it is not people that actually were there, just people who are repeating the story. But people take that as to mean that it's somebody who was actually there. Luke is most likely written. Luke is most likely written in around 90 to 110 CE. Luke is being debated right now, that people originally thought that the Gospel of Marcion was a copy of Luke, just watered down, but many are now re-evaluating that and thinking that Luke may actually be a copy of Marcion with the additional writings from the other three Gospels, so-called Gospels. Because we know, like I said, these were called the wisdom of the apostles, by Justin Martyr in 150, and were unnamed by other people prior to that. So when we look at these stories, we have that as our background. We have that as our background of understanding. So I want you to chart this with me as we go. I want you to keep this in your mind. Write this down on a piece of paper, whatever you have to do. But we're going to go through this so that we can have our comparison of the two. And because I wrote very small, I'm going to put my glasses on because I want to make sure I do not miss any part of it. So, of course, I know that there is some information that happens in the first part before we even get there. So as far as the lineage, I'm not going over the lineage, but we know that the lineage is not the same, even though both of them are for Joseph. And this is why they're able to say that he's from the line of David, because it's his stepfather Joseph. Mary, we know, is from the line of Aaron. So she's from the Levitical line. So these are not her lineages. So it's already problematic. And let me also preface this with you having this in mind as well. The Jesus character himself said that if a house is built on sand, then the house will fall. But only a house built on stone can stand, right? You got to have a good foundation. So the foundation of the story is already mired by the fact that there isn't any eyewitnesses, that it's copies of copies and hearsay. And then there are variances in the lineages. And now we're going to get into the variances of the story itself. So according to the Matthew story, it is Mary who was betrothed. Mary was betrothed to Joseph, and she was found with child, right? And Joseph had not had sex with her yet. But in the Matthew version, an angel appears to Joseph in a dream and tells him to take on this child. This child will be from the Holy Spirit, from the Holy Ghost, and he's going to be the king and all these sorts of things. So Joseph, Mary Magdalene? No, this is Mary, mother of Joseph. Oh, y'all were talking to each other. What about the Templars finding the bones of Jesus? Why are you asking questions that we ain't talking about yet, damn it? No, ain't nobody found any bones. The Templars didn't find any bones. So Mary is pregnant. Joseph has a dream of that this baby is coming from this Holy Spirit. Now, because this is written for the Jewish people, this, of course, is going to have a male dominance towards the Jewish people, things that will align with them. Luke is written for the Gentiles. In the Luke version, the angel appears to Mary and not Joseph. Mary is startled, but it's not a dream. He appears to her. Joseph has a dream. Mary has a real life appearance. And the angel tells her, do not be afraid, for the child that is within you is of the Holy Spirit, and he shall be called Emmanuel, and all this other sort of thing. So we got that difference. Now Joseph went ahead and took Mary as his wife. Now, one thing that the Catholics get wrong, and you can go and read this for yourself, but it says that Joseph took Mary as a wife and did not have sex with her until after Jesus was born. Now, it doesn't go anything beyond that, but I want to ask you guys a question. If I said to you that I didn't have sex with my wife until after we moved to San Antonio, does that mean that we never had sex thereafter? How would you understand that? Would you understand that she now becomes a perpetual virgin? But it clearly says until after Jesus was born. If they did find bones, it would kill their story to a certain degree. Then it'd be Da Vinci Code. But I want to know, am I the only one that thought that? When it says that he took Mary as his wife, but did not have sex with her until after Jesus was born, is she a perpetual virgin? Or after Jesus was born, they did the shakalaka boom boom? And all that stuff about, oh, the other children, Jesus' brothers and sisters, those were older kids. There's absolutely nothing in the Bible that says that those were older children, that Joseph had older kids. Right? You guys not going for it? Play the holy ping pong. But I find that most people have just skipped over that. Like, I've always noticed that, but most people just skip over and they try to say, oh, well, that's not what that means. It's exactly what that means. It means that if a person said that they didn't have sex with somebody until after a certain event, that means that they had sex with them after that event. So since it says Joseph didn't have sex with her until after Jesus was born, it means that after Jesus was born, he made the wedding official. Which in their time frame, that, and actually even in today's time frame in America at least, that what makes your wedding official is when you go and consummate the wedding. I don't know if y'all know this, but in most states, if you do not have sex, you can get it annulled. It's never, and meaning that it never happened. So the act of having sex is still the way a marriage happens. Right, Norbert. They skipped that because they didn't want to see the truth. What's up, Texas Goddess? Some of them are reckless. All right, so they had sex. Now, in the Matthew version, it just goes straight into talking about how Jesus was born in Bethlehem during the reign of Herod. This should become the biggest problem that shakes the foundation of the Jesus story. What about the outside theory that Jesus had mortal twins from Joseph? I've never heard that before. I've never heard that one before. That's crazy. I've heard that Thomas was supposed to be his twin, since Didymus Thomas means twin, but that doesn't mean it's Jesus' twin. I heard that one, but Thomas is definitely not his brother. But why should we have a problem with Matthew saying that Jesus was born in Bethlehem during the reign of Herod? It doesn't talk about taking the journey. You see, the journey part, coming from Galilee, coming from Nazareth to Bethlehem, that's a Luke story. So if you was reading this story and you was only reading the Matthew version, like before the Bible was canonized, then in your mind, Jesus just got to Bethlehem and he was born during the reign of Herod. The problem with that is that in the Luke version, it says that Caesar Augustus required a census to be done over Judea, and he got Quirinius. These two back teeth is out, so I can't say the name right. Quirinius, and that's not how you say his name. Quirinius is Quirinius. Thank you, Quirinius. Them two back teeth is messing me up. Quirinius, God damn it, that's how we have to say it, who was the governor of Syria, was sent down to conduct this census. But Quirinius wasn't the governor of Syria and did not go, according to Roman records, to conduct a census until 6 CE. Well, that should be easy, right? The problem is that the latest date given for the death of Herod is 4 BCE. So which one is that not a big problem? Talk to me, people. If Jesus is supposedly born during the reign of Herod, Herod died in no later than 4 BCE. But Quirinius doesn't do his census till 6 CE. That's at least 10 years difference right there. That's 10 years. 10 whole big ass years. And that's from his death. That's from his death. You got to think, Jesus wouldn't have been born in 4 BCE in order for the story in Matthew to work. In order for the story in Matthew to work and align with the story in Luke, you got Jesus in Luke where he appears at the church at the age. I mean, you got the story in Luke. You got the story of Jesus appearing at the temple at 12 years old. And that's in Luke, at 12 years old. So before he can appear, he has to be at least 12 years old. So he had to have been born at least, about 11 to 12 years prior to his death. So that means he had to be at least, at minimum, Jesus had to have been born around 16 BCE, 16, 15 BCE. So the first big problem when you compare the story is that there's this possible 20-year plus gap of when this Jesus character is supposed to have been born. So the whole story, now there's a problem with the whole census story as well. There's a problem with this census. At no point in time in the entire history of the Roman Empire were the people required to go to their homeland for a census to be done. Every census the Roman government conducted, none of them required people to travel to their homeland. So even the idea of Joseph having to travel with Mary to Joseph's homeland of Bethlehem for a census is fool's gold to believe that, because that's never happened. And think about the logistic nightmare of that. You got people all over the Roman Empire, and all of a sudden they got to leave to go to their homeland to be counted for a census. I don't know where you guys live, but living here in San Antonio, this city is about as bad as Atlanta. There are military retirees everywhere. And when I say as bad as Atlanta, meaning that there are transplants all in this city. If the American government said, hey, we're going to do a census in 2026, and in order to conduct this census, everybody has to go back to where they were born, and you cannot take a car or a plane. You got to, take a donkey, a horse, or walk, right? So this is going to be, it's a 14-hour drive to Atlanta. So walking, I don't know how many, it's probably about 5 days, 5+ days to walk to Atlanta or ride a horse or whatever. How destructive would it be for the time, say a month time frame of everybody in San Antonio got to leave for a month and a half. And everybody everywhere else in America got to leave and go back to wherever they were born, month and a half. That would destroy the American economy. Since Rome was about money and power, do you really think Rome would disrupt their economy to a degree where for about 3 to 4 months, every city has this migration going on? No. So the fact that Luke put that in his story should take away some of the credibility. This rock is showing some cracks. Some big chunks is coming off this rock, because the two stories don't match, and even within the story is stupid. Now, according to the Matthew story, with him being born during the time frame of Herod, you have the story of this star that's shining in the east, right? And you have these wise men who come from, you have this star that's shining. You be correct. You have a star, it's shining in the east. You have these wise men who are from the east. It doesn't say that the wise men are coming from the east, but it just says these wise men are from the east, meaning It could be that they are Eastern men. They could be Zoroastrians, as many people like to think of them as being. But it's most likely that they meant this, that they were in the East, coming from the East, that they were coming from the East. You cannot be in Iraq and follow a star in the East to get to Jerusalem or Bethlehem. It doesn't work that way. They would have had to have been either on the coast in like Haifa, modern day Haifa, or Joppa was the city back then, or out on the water, because you can't be in Egypt and follow it eastward, because that's northeast. And it's more north than east. The only way you can follow a star in the east, you gotta be west of that star. You gotta be over there by the Euphrates. And then you gotta follow that star in the east. But we know that no star just sits in the east. The stars don't sit in one spot, as this story tried to tell you that it sits in one spot, right? If you ever set out at night and you're watching the stars, you know that if you look at a star at 12 midnight, by 1 o'clock, that star is in a different position. It's not in the same spot. The entire night sky goes from east to south to west, east, southwest. That's how the sky rotates when you're looking. Whatever comes up in the east, you keep watching it, unless it dips below the horizon or rises up straight above you. That damn thing is still heading south and then west. So you're not following a star in that regard. But these wise men, and it's not 3, it doesn't give a number of how many it were. He said if we all left the city, it'd be looting and everything. It sure would. It'd be a nightmare. So these wise men could not have been following this star in the east. The idea of 3 comes much later by Christian fathers who incorporate Orion's belt and the whole rising, which is actually a SARS belt, which points to Sirius, which points to the rising of the sun. That actually comes later. That wasn't in this part. That's why we get the 3 wise men. So that's a later additional doctrine to this whole story. But we're just looking at the story itself. So these 3 come and find the baby Jesus. Well, first they go to Jerusalem. Now, according to this, they go to Jerusalem. They meet Herod. So Herod is still alive. So this has to happen before 4 BCE. They talk to Herod. Herod is like, hey, let me know. I want to go and worship, because, if a new king of Jerusalem is coming, I want to be a part of that. I want to know him, right? But we know Herod just want to kill him because he don't want to give up his power, because he's a sycophant to the Romans. So the last time I talked about this, and I should have brought it up today, but I didn't. I had a map, and I showed you on the map where Bethlehem, and you can pull this up if you like, Bethlehem is southeast of Jerusalem. According to the story, when the wise men left, they followed the star to Bethlehem, which is southeast, and it's more south than it is east. And when they got there, they came to a house where the star was hovering over the house. This is why when people say that they believe in this book, I'm like, how can you believe in this book when they talk about scientific things that are impossible? It is impossible for a star to hover over a house. Now, the ancient alien theorists love this idea. They love it. They love it. Because we know that a star cannot hover over a house. If somebody said a star was over a city from a great distance, it could look like a star is hovering over a city. But the closer and closer you get, that star seems to not be hovering over that city. A star can't hover over a house. It just doesn't work. It's an impossibility. Now, if we was writing this today, then we can say a helicopter is hovering over a house. It could be hovering over a house, of course. Yes, and there's some astrotheology to it where Bethlehem is supposed to be the house of bread and is referring to the constellation of Virgo, the Virgin. Those things are incorporated into it, which is even more reason why we should not accept this, because they ain't even talking about reality, but people believe that this Jesus walked on earth. So if the Jesus character walked on earth, then he had to have been born. And if he was born, then he was born in Bethlehem, because the Old Testament says that out of Bethlehem will come this Messiah. But like Isaac is saying, they didn't expect this. They didn't expect this stuff to last. They wrote this stuff down. They didn't think that we would scientifically know that it was full of bullshit, the things that they were saying. They thought they knew that stars can hover over houses. A helicopter can with some ghetto lights on it. That ghetto bird with some lights on it, sure. So, and understand, so when you come to these people and you're talking to the Christians, try to come to you with this nonsense, you know, I want you to be well prepared for it. So they're saying that this star is hovering over this house. Now, in the Luke version, it's not the wise men that show up. The Luke version has nothing to do about wise men. This is how they merge this shit together. The Luke version doesn't even give you a star. Now, you would think that if there's a star hovering over this house, then the shepherds would have been told about the same star, right? But when this angel appears to the wise men just saw a star. But for the shepherd, an angel appeared. Gabriel appeared again. And he tells the shepherds, and he tells them, for you, the sign of this deity, this birth, is going to be that you will find a baby wrapped in swaddling clothing in a manger. No star. No star. You see how they merge the stories? There's no star. Luke has no star. How could Luke, if Luke was interviewing people, how the hell did they miss a whole big ass star hovering above somebody's house? In order to try to trick you in this one, this is where the Bible believer will say that, oh, well, when the wise men came, Jesus had already been running around as a toddler and all this kind of stuff. He might have been 2-3 years old. And they get that because Herod says that kill everybody's child who is 2 and below in the surrounding areas. So they try to say that Jesus could have been 2 or 3 or below. But in the Matthew version, it said they came and found the baby Jesus. He was an infant. He was just born. The star was hovering over the house. And they found him in Bethlehem. When the shepherds came, they found a baby sitting in a manger. She had just had the baby. The baby hadn't went through its circumcision and dedication of name yet. So it was a baby. You can't have a toddler in Matthew and then you got a baby in Luke. Because in Luke, after 8 days, they take the baby up to Jerusalem, go through the circumcision, and they go through the circumcision, the naming of the child, pay their two turtle doves for the sin of having a baby, so that Mary and the baby can be clean. So this is the baby that they find. It's a baby. Because I want you to think about it. If it's not a baby, if Mary and Joseph did these things in Luke, but in Matthew, it says that they were told to go to Egypt until Herod dies. You wouldn't have a 2-3-year-old there. You got to have a baby. You got to have a baby. Now, as we look further into this, we got this, the shepherds come and they find him, and the sign was that they found a baby in swaddling clothing, and then they are there for 8 days. But it doesn't say in Luke that after the 8 days that they, and the purification that they go through in Jerusalem, the very place where Herod is supposed to be, the very place that Herod wants to kill him, and they see Simeon, and Simeon is like, oh, I was promised I see the Lord, and then he dies. It says they return back to Nazareth right after that. And right after they returned to Nazareth, it says that every year they came to Jerusalem in order for Passover every year. And then that's where we get that 12-year-old story of Jesus talking to the people in the church. But according to the Matthew story, while he was still baby Jesus, the angel said, take the baby to Egypt because Herod is going to kill him. See, Matthew was writing this because the Jewish text was saying that, hey, God is going to call his son out of Egypt. So we got to put him in Egypt. Luke is writing to the Gentiles. Luke didn't give a shit about saying that he came out of Egypt, but Matthew did. So they had to give him a reason. So the reason that Matthew concocted was that Herod was trying to kill everybody, kill all the little babies. Now there's no, if Herod had killed all the babies, it would have been recorded by some Romans. Some Romans would have recorded it, but nobody recorded this. And by the time Herod does die, at the latest 4 BCE, because Herod Archelaus was running Judea, they went to Nazareth into Galilee so it could fit that he was born in Bethlehem, came up out of Egypt, and he was a Nazarene. He was from Nazareth, out of Galilee. So Matthew is definitely writing to a Jewish audience. Luke don't give a shit about that. In Luke, there's nothing about going to Egypt, and it wouldn't match. It wouldn't match up, because how is he going to Passover every year? But he's supposed to be in Egypt until Herod dies. So I hope you guys can see the contradictions in these two stories. And these cannot be refuted. There's no way to explain it. I would love for a Christian to try to give their excuse as to how these two stories make it impossible. Jesus is either born before 4 BCE, or he's born in 6 CE. Which one is it? There's a 10-year gap that he got to be born during that time frame. He goes to Jerusalem, get purified, and goes to Nazareth, or he goes down to Egypt. And he's down in Egypt for a minimum 12 years. A minimum got to be down there 12 years so that Herod can die and so that their family can come to Passover. This is all they got. When they know their story is full of shit, this is all they can do. All you can do is get angry, Patel. All you can do is be mad. It's kind of like what Will said earlier. When you show people that their story is false, that is built on sand, they lash out in anger. They lash out. This is why when you see the Christians on my page, like D'Angelo and some of the other ones, they always are lashing out. When you see the ones on YouTube who start their sentences out with the same stuff, calling me names, all they can do is lash out in anger and in Christian righteousness of love and anger, instead of saying, well, damn, these stories, it's either one or the other. It can't be both. And if one of them is lies, and I don't know which one is the lie, then all of it must be scrutinized to be a lie. But I understand your anger. Somebody coming in and telling me that my religion is jacked up, is full of lies, it will cause me pause as well. It's a deeply emotional thing to be inside these religions. Right. Outside of popping out of a virgin, the two stories don't match. It's two totally different events. You got a host of different people. You got stars and shit showing up. You got no stars showing up. You got angels showing up in one. You got no angels showing up in the other. You got Persians, Zoroastrian priests coming in, and other one you just got some old shepherds that's out in the field. You know. And the whole deal of being in the manger was the fact that there was no place in the inn. The inn is a family home. So That's the whole thing of an inn. So they're down in the basement, basically, because there was no room that she could take. You got a census that's going on where people from all over the Roman Empire got to go home. That's illogical and never happened. In Matthew, Jesus never gets purified. Don't get the circumcision. Don't get the naming thing. They don't pay their 2 turf doves. They just roll out to Egypt. So these stories, these 2 stories, like Sean said, are incompatible with one another. But what they tell you is that they try to run it all together to make it into one story. They try to say, oh yeah, Mary was betrothed to Joseph. The angel came and saw Mary, and the angel saw Joseph. They both got their visitation. They came married. Joseph took her on as a wife, didn't have sex with her. Jesus was born. Well, didn't have sex with her, but then there was a census. They had to travel down to Jerusalem, to Bethlehem. While they was in Bethlehem, there was no room in the inn. Jesus was then born. The wise men came, the shepherds came, and then they got up and they went to Egypt, and they was down there till Herod died. Then they came back, and then when they was back, they made the pilgrim every year. James, go read both of them at the same. Go read, get 2 Bibles. Read the story side by side. Read the story side by side, and you'll see it. If you don't see that, you just lying to yourself. Just lying to yourself. Because if you believe that he went up and went to Egypt, but yet he showed up in Jerusalem his parents said it in James. James, just do this simple thing. We'll make it easy for you. Luke says that after he was born, they went to Jerusalem, did the sacrifice, and then they came back for Passover every year. Matthew says they got up and they left and they went to Egypt, and they didn't come back until Herod Archelaus was in charge. How can those 2 things happen at the same time? Riddle me that. How can those 2 things happen at the same time? I want to know how those 2 things can happen at the same time. I can't live. That would be like me moving to San Antonio from Atlanta, but then for 12 years straight, I drive from Wilmington to Atlanta every year. I can't be in San Antonio driving from Wilmington to Atlanta. That don't make no sense. Do me a favor, don't write in all caps. I'd appreciate it if you didn't write in all caps. Can you please speak on the difference between ethnic Hebrew people and Ashkenazi, respectfully? What day did we do that? I can't remember what day it was. It was some day last week where there was a similar conversation. There are no ethnic Hebrew people. The original Canaanite people who became and separated themselves and called themselves Israelites, that bloodline has been washed and washed and washed and washed so many times. People are just claiming Hebrew based on the fact that they have lived there, or Israelite because they've lived there and they have this religion. Ashkenazis, yes, those are people who have adopted the religion, but there are no ethnic Hebrew people. They are all a mixture of Assyrian blood, Babylonian blood, Greek blood, Persian blood, Roman blood, Egyptian blood, Canaanite, which is a mixture from Sumerians and Akkadians. There is no ethnic Hebrew. Israelites are treated like a race, but they're not a race. They're a religion. They're a nationality of people. They're not like black, white, how we identify races. The topic was Tuesday of last week. So that was Tuesday of last week. If you want to get more into, I forgot who sent that. PKSK, the live that I did Tuesday of last week, I go into where the Israelite people come from, the whole deal. You know that only, you know what? I try to, James, that don't make sense. Who is the truth? Who is the truth? Heavy. So who is the truth? Well, the Bible ain't. I don't understand what you're getting at. I don't understand why Patel, sometimes she's good to go, but like today, that makes no sense to me. Didn't you say you were going to do a live about Tataria conspiracy theory? Yes, but I didn't say when. I don't give dates. Go watch the live last Tuesday. I break down where Hebrews come from. They are Canaanites who used to be Sumerians and Akkadians. Well, they were conquered by the Sumerians and Akkadians, but they were Canaanites. You know, I think you own something, Cranky Pants. I think Patel really comes on here because there's a part of them that is really questioning their belief. And when we do videos, when we do lives like this one, where it clearly shows that the gospel writers are not of one accord, that the Bible, so-called inspired by God, created a bunch of contradictions within their story. And you basically have to turn a blind eye to accept it. Yeah, I said I'm gonna do it, but I ain't say when, but I will get to it. Nah, you got about an hour of cigar left. You got about an hour of cigar. You got more than 30 minutes of cigar. Just think about this for a second. It's all real. So you're saying the myths, all of it. So is Yeshua. However, scripture is just a guide, not an actual story. It's hidden, a devious story. It's hiding a devious story. None of it is real. You literally cannot prove 99% of the Bible is unprovable. The only thing you can prove is, did Jerusalem exist? Sure. Pontius Pilate? Sure. That's about it. You can prove like certain people, certain places. That's about it. You can't prove any of this Bible. And it's not a guide. If the Bible is a guide, then the Bible is the worst guide for humanity ever created. Right? I want you to think about it. The Bible tells you to sacrifice children. It tells you to sacrifice animals. It tells you that women are nothing more than property. It tells you that you can own people who are foreigners to you as property and pass them down for generations. That women, if they give their word, their husband or their father can supersede their word and make it invalid because they're just a woman. You're just a woman. You can't inherit shit unless you marry somebody who's also part of your clan. It invites incest. It invites genocide and murdering of children and women and old people, and the burning of animals and the burning of cities. This is the worst guide if it is just a guide. It is horrible. This is a guide of death and genocide and a disruption of the human psyche. That is what this is. If I wanted a better guide for dealing with people, the Tao Te Ching in only 80 phrases is way more humane and civil than the Bible. The Bible demonstrates the worst of humanity. One thing's for sure, the truth will definitely be revealed when we die. So I'll trust in Christ. You think what you think, and we'll see how it turns out in the end, sir. Okay, vision. What if Allah is actually the real God? You go to Muslim hell. What if any other religion is the right one? So you're going to trust in Christ, but you're atheistic towards every other God. What if any of those other gods are right? What if the Greeks were right? Do you go to Elysium because you were a great warrior? But if you weren't a great warrior, where do you go? Do you go to Tartarus? You see what I'm saying? Pascal's wager doesn't work. If you was following the Bible, then yes, since the priesthood is supposed to go through Aaron and it's supposed to be the Levites, then the Ashkenazis call themselves rabbis, they're not priests. But so too would be all the people calling themselves pastors and bishops and all these other folk as well. Because ain't none of these jokers over here in America are Levites. None of them people in Africa are Levites. None of them people over in Europe are Levites. None of them Asians are Levites. None of them Australians are Levites. None of them, not a one. So none of these people should be able to call themselves priests. All of them will fall into the same category as the Ashkenazis because none of them are from the lines of Aaron. Let me give you a little information about, because I think you're new to the page. 10 to SAU, this guy, I can't say the name. I can tell you this about this page. I do not give attention to anybody who writes in all caps. I've said it once, but if you write in all caps, I ignore your comments completely. Papa Lance, how you doing? Right. What if Brahma is the creator, Vishnu the preserver, and Shiva the destroyer are the real Trinity? Then what are they gonna do? You believed in Christ, but Brahma's gonna look at you, and Vishnu them gonna look at you a little different. You believe in Christ, but Asara, Set, and Heru gonna look at you a little different when you get down there. Anubis gonna be like, nah, brother, it didn't work out. It ain't gonna work out for you. Sorry, it's just not gonna work. You know, you just gonna have to just be wrong. Just gonna be wrong. That's right. Buddhism worked out great for Tina Turner. And I know you weren't on my webinar last night for debunking the Noah's flood story, but according to your flood story, all of them died. So what does that have to do with anything, any half-breeds or anything? Because supposedly, according to your story, even though we would be able to see it in our genetic diversity or the lack thereof of genetic diversity. These are some of the things y'all missed last night. If Shem, Japheth, and Ham repopulated the earth, our genetic diversity that we have to now would not be there. We would all pretty much look alike because we haven't had enough time to create enough genetic diversity to have the level of genetic diversity we have right now. So all your little people dead, they all died. All your little half-breeds that you call them and all your watchers, they all supposed to die. Are there any connections in myth between the Jewish Joshua and the Christian Yeshua as the chosen ones? Well, the Jesus character is supposed to be an emulation of the Joshua character in the past, in his past story of overcoming and becoming the person that everybody's coming to. But the Jewish people are still looking for, and I think this is how you mean it, they're still looking for the Messiah to come. They don't think Jesus was a Messiah. And this is what caused the separation between Jews and Christians. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question the way based on, I'm not sure if I'm actually answering your question, but I think based on what I think that's the answer. Hold on. How you gonna say no one is an idiot? Everyone has free will to think of their own how they want, but you called me an idiot. That don't make sense. That's contradictory, like your Bible is contradictory of itself. You see what I'm saying? That you call me an idiot, but you say no one is an idiot. See how that don't work? And see, we covered Lucy also. And see that belief in a Messiah, one who's going to come and save you and is going to rescue you and is going to bring forth this new kingdom. There's no Messiah coming except for the one inside yourself. There's nobody coming to save you. And according to the Jewish belief, they believed their Messiah was going to come and overthrow whatever government was pressing them down. You know, it's kind of like in the video I talked about today with Gideon. Gideon is a Messiah type to them, coming and relieving them of their oppression. Jesus didn't relieve them of their oppression. The Romans were still whooping their ass every day. I was just pointing out how religious people have a thing for pure blood, and the blood has a lot of importance in this myth. And so this Bible stories, like they like excludes the Old Testaments where angels were clapping cheeks. They do have this thing about blood. It's funny, me and my wife was just talking about this, I think last night, of how in all these stories, this is why incest was still a prevalent thing even up until the 1950s, where cousins are marrying cousins, and many of the medieval people were marrying, and not just medieval, this was happening in every country, where every tribe, every nation, every city, where people, in order to keep power, would intermarry with their own relatives, and then they would marry other clans, and then those relatives would start mixing and matching and doing all this stuff because they believed that there was a way to have some purity in this bloodline. Really, they were just creating issues. I know, and when they talk about like the sons of God having sex with the daughters of men, if the angels are of different species, how in the hell are they having? That's like a cat and a dog trying to have sex and producing a baby. That's just not going to happen. Cat and dogs don't do that. Cat and dog, a dog can bang a cat or a cat can bang a dog. A baby is not coming out of it. I saw this one video where this dog tried to bang a chicken. They were not going to have a chicken dog. It's just not happening. But it goes into that whole mindset. Zeus came down and had sex with this woman, and Hercules was born, and Achilles was born from, demigodness, and all these other ones, all these other deities, all these demigods are born because some god had sex with a woman, and they had some hero. So the whole Nephilim thing is a known trope. And it's not just a Greek trope or a Kemetic trope. It was known from the Sumerians and the Akkadians, where Enki is the one that does it the most. Enki supposedly went and had sex with these women and birthed out babies and stuff. Gilgamesh was a demigod half-breed. Zoroaster was, Octahesis, they all these demigods. Well, so people say that angels don't have sexual parts because Jesus said that angels aren't given into marriage like people are. So they made it assume that they're not built like people. But there's really nothing that doesn't really say that they don't have sexual parts. But of course, we know if you don't get married, I mean you're doing the shakalaka boom boom. Zeus, and who had a hero? Hercules. Hercules is supposed to be Zeus's son. So that story, those types of stories, is always been told. If we were to use the evidence we have about Jesus to accuse a historical figure as being Jesus, it would fail in a court of law. Exactly. I don't see why we need evidence beyond reasonable doubt to accuse a man of murder, but no evidence is needed to believe in this supposed storm god. This is why they say, Christopher, this is why they say they do it in faith. Because they know that the evidence points against them as far as this God, Jesus, and all this other story. Because what the Jesus story would, I think somebody did that. There was back in the day, somebody actually did that. They did a thing where they argued a case for Jesus in a court of law, and the cases will be found to be a fraud. I remember something about that like 20, 30 years ago. That's right. Gonna have a chicken dog. You got it. Now that is always something that bothered me, like these, and then when they had these babies, okay, ladies on here, these women supposedly had giants. These Nephilim supposedly were going into women, and they had the giants. I know y'all poom can do some stretching, but god damn, seriously, You want to believe a story where these women had sex with big angels and 15 footers and 30 footers, and they had these babies that grew to be 15 and 30 feet? How big does a baby have to be so that it can grow to be 15 and 30 feet? God damn, that's a lot. Ooh. Ain't nobody else going up in there after that. You can go up in there and spin around. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, hello, 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 hello. Anybody here, 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 here? Is this a 2-bedroom, 1 bath? Awesome. Okay. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it. Sorry. It's just an impossibility. I mean, that whole story of all these guys having sex with women and these giants coming out of them is just ridiculous, right? It just doesn't make any sense. It's a biological impossibility. Once a human being starts getting around 8 feet, their bone structure, because of the 3-cube law, their bone structures can't handle it. They can't. You're not gonna have, some big 9-foot athletic joker. You're gonna be walking around on some crutches and a cane. Their bodies just can't handle it, and that's because we live on Earth. A human being can only be so big, so it's just not gonna work. And the angels would have to have the same type of genetics to be as the same species as a human in order to birth something. Said she walking bow-legged for the rest of her life. Goddamn, all right. And that's the real. God created man, or did man create God? Man created God. To have a baby, they must have flesh if the angels went into her. Exactly. They cannot be these spiritual beings. But they often make the angels fleshly. Like, remember when Abraham was washing the feet of the angels, and then Jacob was wrestling with either an angel or God? See, they're spiritual beings when it's convenient to the story, and they're flesh when it's convenient to the story. Exactly. Every time we have somebody who's over 8 feet, they always have these disabilities about them. I think the tallest one, each one of them. That's why they lied about how tall Wemby was when he was coming into the draft, because they know the taller you are, the more problems you're gonna have. That boy was 7'5" when he came into the draft. He ain't no 7'3". Okay, okay. James, let me ask you a question. You said man did not create God. God quit a man, get it straight. God created man, get it straight. So who created Brahma? Who created Odamari? Who created Quetzalcoatl? Who created all these other gods? And these people had no connection to the Middle Eastern people who created Yahweh. Who created those gods? Did a dude in South America, in Central America, create Quetzalcoatl? Riddle me that. Because see, I want them to really think about it. You got to think about some of these statements they be making. If God created man and man didn't create God, and you're basing this on this Middle Eastern story, this Levantian story, then who created Quetzalcoatl, who was in Central and North America, and nobody had any connections with the people over here? Who created Maui? You see what I'm saying? That's what I want to know. Because somebody created them. Who created Enlil and Enki and Anu? And how is Yahweh different with the Canaanites and also different with the Midianites and different with the Moabites? Yahweh is a different God with all these other people. It's kind of strange. And then who created him? The people in who created him? Because the region that we call the Middle East right now, that's where that God was created. Because I know the people in Africa ain't never heard no damn Yahweh. I know them Europeans ain't heard no damn Yahweh either until they came to the Levant. The Africans in here today came to the Levant. The Asian people ain't never heard no damn Yahweh. People in India ain't never heard no Yahweh. Ain't none of them people come named Yahweh. It's not happening. No. It's just not gonna happen. Oh yeah, I forgot. Y'all remember? I forgot he was born in 3350 BC. At least he know the year. He's consistent with the year. Okay, I ain't reading no more of his shit because I can't understand what the fuck you saying. My brother note is from my brother. Something is from Africa, and yes, he did. Yes, he did hear about Yahweh, and you know about Yahweh. The people in Africa 600 years ago and never heard no goddamn Yahweh. What did he say? Yah was a young girl in Egypt where the Hebrews got the name. What part of of your brain is not conjugating the fact that I'm saying that the people prior to the Europeans bringing Yahweh to sub-Saharan Africa, ain't nobody heard that motherfucker. Ain't nobody heard of him. Oh my gosh. Let me move on. Let me talk to people that actually intelligence. I find that more Christians grant more credibility to the Buddhism and the Buddhist teaching over the Muslim God and God teachings, even though it uses the same first 4 to 5 books of the Bible. Strange is that it's not strange because of nationalism and the nationalistic idea of terrorism. That's the reason why. It actually has nothing to do with the religion because you would think religiously they would be in concert with Muslims, but because of perceived terrorism, Christians will be more apt to agree with any damn body else's religion before Islam. It's a sad thing, which is, I mean, people are stupid, just like they are with politics. Politics and religion make people dumb as hell. Mm, mm, mm. Boss lady. I was wondering what everybody was talking about. Boss lady. She had an 8-pound baby and had to shape her cone head. You know what's funny? And this has nothing to do with anything. When my first daughter was born, there was this other couple who had their baby like a couple of weeks beforehand. And the baby came out and they used that suction cone. So when we went for the 7-month visit, their baby was born already. And then, later on that night, my child was born. My oldest was born. And when I went to visit one day, I went up there and I saw them, and their mom was there. And I told them, I said, y'all need to start rubbing that baby head so he can shape her head. You'd have thought I gave the mother the lottery ticket because she was so worried about her baby having this long ass cone head. I know they had nothing to do with what we was talking about, but it just reminded me of that. 8-pound baby, that's a big baby. That's a big baby. Got to shape them heads. I was shaping my daughter, even though my daughter was born through C-sections. All of them were. I still made sure their head wasn't shaped funny. My son's head is just shaped big. He just got a big ass head because he just got a big ass head like his daddy. But yeah, I know I said people are stupid just like they are with politics. Politics and religion makes people dumb. Because the fact that somebody's going to sit here and think that these women were having these big giant babies is just dumb. It just makes no sense. The fact that they will believe these stories when they can see the contradictions. I mean, I want you to think about it. The contradictions that we saw today between Matthew and Luke clearly shows that these two stories are in conflict with each other. It's the same way that people can hear a politician say some stupid shit, but still back that politician. And I'm not picking on anyone. They all say some dumb shit on both sides of the aisle. They all do on both sides. I think the whole height with Goliath also he's taller than 6'9". Is actually he's closer to the 9 feet, simply because the time that the story of David and Goliath was being written is most likely that they used the Egyptian form of measurement, which would make him more like 9 feet tall, which makes the story bullshit. But you can also see that Goliath had a disability. He couldn't see that well. His vision was impaired, and he had to walk with his staff. But Goliath was like fighting an old man. Hey, fighting an old man. Did you know that the Immaculate Conception was not invented to describe Jesus' conception? The Immaculate Conception refers to Mary, the mother of Jesus, and states that God had given her so much grace at conception that she was born without original sin, which means that she was born with desire to do evil, and she led a sin-free life, so God could only do it once. And she wasn't born to desire to evil. Yeah, and a lot of people don't really understand that the Immaculate Conception really is supposed to be the birth of Mary, that she was born without sin, so that she could be a perfect vessel in order to bring forth Jesus. No. But then that actually is doctrine, it's Catholic doctrine that was added to the idea. You really won't, that's not part of, you won't find that anywhere in the book. That's a Catholic dogma that was created. Now he was wearing all that armor. Now I will give it some credit. I've seen some Israelis use them damn slings. They'll knock the shit out of you. But he was slow and deformed and slow and had disabilities. So the Ashkenazi people who went to Europe, who was called that name Hebrew. The Europeans call the Ashkenazi people Hebrews and Jews. Pretty much, but they're calling the people who adopted the religion. It's not a group, it's the adoption of the religion. He was 6 cubits in span and so 9'9" inches. Some accounts for 4.6 inches in the step to. Okay, grant you that one, which makes it contradiction within itself. If he was 9'9", that motherfucker had problems. But it certainly doesn't mean that angels came down and had sex with the daughters of men. Okay, that's fine. Sorry. My wife was down there yelling. I figured she was yelling at the TV. I know. I wish my son would have got, I told him once he grow into his man body, then his head won't look as big. What? I thought the male seahorse just held the babies until they were ready. They do. They just hold them in a pouch until they're ready to go, and then they kick them out. Boy, the Virgin Mary is only a virgin until you don't count the back door. Well, in the original, the word Alma actually means young woman. It has nothing to do with her virginity. It means young woman. If they really wanted to emphasize virgin, then the Hebrew people would have used the word Bethula. But because they use Alma, it most of the time means a young woman. And when they talked about that in either Ezekiel or Isaiah, they were talking about a child who was born to King Ahaz. Yeah, that reason alone is one reason I could never participate in a religion that okays slavery, any form of slavery. See, this is why Patel be confusing me sometimes. The only reason it was a contradiction is I have multiple personalities. Yeah, that God has multiple personalities. Or are you saying that you have multiple personalities? And that's why I'm not understanding exactly what you mean by here. But this God certainly has multiple personalities. He has multiple personalities throughout the entire Bible. So I'm not sure if the back door was even an option. Hygiene seems questionable back then. Oh, so you have multiple personality. So sometimes you believe in Jesus in the Bible, and sometimes you don't. Look, I actually know of. So this one guy, when I was in Germany, was dating this Turkish woman who was betrothed to another man, and he would only let him hit it in the back door so she can maintain her virginity. He sure did. He asked them to steal a donkey so he can ride that donkey into town. The idea is that he gave it back, but he still stole it in the first place. Jesus broke the whole thing, little thief. So your God was merciful when he told the people to go into Jericho and kill all the old men and kill all the babies, all the women, all the young girls. That was mercy. When he told them that you kill all the young boys, kill all the women, kill all the men, kill all the old men, but take the young girls who have not known a man as your wife, that's mercy. That's mercy. when he instructed Joshua to tell the Danites to go in and kill all the Canaanites in their inheritance and genocide all of them. But if you can't kill them all, then turn them into slaves. That's mercy. Yeah, I don't want your God's mercy. Your God's pretty damn evil. Yep. And I used to always wonder why people didn't notice that. This pig farmer was doing his thing, minding his own business, and all his pigs ran off the cliff. That man lost his whole business. He's already poor because, you know, pig farmers were a lower caste. He was already in a bad situation. He lost all his folk. All my personalities believe in Jesus as God. All your personalities are wrong because there is zero proof that that God exists. Right, you're gonna flood an entire world. That's not mercy. Yep, I've heard that too. Catholic girls will practice some backdoor action in order to maintain a virgin. But this book is horrible as far as having any morality. I don't know if y'all can hear my lovely bride down there, but she is yelling at that TV. The Celtics and the Knicks are playing. I would agree with you, Rad. Just trolling. Just need a little love. That's all she needs. That's some love and attention. Randall, you pay attention to me. Don't be paying attention to that game. Look, Randall, don't be paying attention to that game. Oh, it ain't showing up. You pay attention to Yes, that's her screaming at them. She's a Celtics fan. This is actually a good question. If by chance God was real, would you worship him? Now I'm going to assume you mean the Bible God. If the Bible God was real, hold on, let me open this door something. I got too much smoke coming here. Don't have much wind flow today, I see. So if the Bible God was real, would I worship him? No, I would not. You see, the Bible God is so damn evil that I would rather, and damn, I meant to do that as a video today and I completely forgot. Let me write this down. All right. So, and I'm gonna do this as a video, so it don't matter. So if the Bible God was real, when I look at what this guy talks about, what this guy does, what he authorizes, all the narcissistic evil shit that this guy does, I would not worship this guy and I'd rather be separated from this guy. Because according to this story, if you, and the overwhelming majority of the Bible speaks of separation from God just being a situation of oblivion. Revelation is the only one that created this lake of fire business, right? And I know that Revelation was written and actually talking about the Roman Empire and not necessarily talking about a true end time. So if this God was actually real, revelation is not part of his deal. But separation from this God just means oblivion. I'd rather cease to exist than to live in some heaven/hellscape with this God. You see what I'm saying? So no, I wouldn't worship this God, even if he existed for real. And if he was God, then I would say that why do you require worship? If you're God, you should not require any worship whatsoever. What are you missing? What's lacking with you that you require? You need my worship. So no, I would never worship this God. Now I'm going to do about a longer form video of that tomorrow, because I forgot today. I knew it was something I was forgetting. Write that down. That way I won't forget. But at the end of the day, I'm going to create my own afterlife. I ain't going nowhere with this God. I would never want to be around this God. I'm not sure, Stephanie, I understand what you mean. If he was walking on water, where were the people under the water? I don't understand. I don't understand that. But yeah, I would never want to be anywhere that this God is present if he existed. What do you say, Tim? Say easy on potatoes. They here learn. She here learning. Why do they want the world to end? Because they don't have enough within themselves to make their life better. Oh, if Jesus walked on water, as they say, where were the people while he was walking on water? So the story, as the story goes, the disciples were all in a boat. They had set sail without Jesus, and then he came strolling along, probably walking on the sandbar. But he came strolling along, walking on the water, and then they saw him walking on water. And then Peter was like, "Can I walk on water? And I want to walk on water with you." And Peter supposedly got out there, walked on water. Then he had some doubt. He started sinking, and then his faith was reaffirmed. And he got up and started walking with him. So Peter supposedly walked on water with him, but the disciples were in the boat. But of course, it's all a made up story. Now, some are going to say that Jesus, the sun walking on water, is what you see when the sun is glistening off of any body of water. They're going to make it astrotheology kind of lesson. See, I already knew who was going to write that. I knew who was going to write it, but I didn't want to say it so I can give him a chance to write it. But I knew who was going to write it. If it's astrotheology, Boondog's going to write it. Isn't this? I know most of y'all well enough that I know exactly what y'all gonna say about certain stuff. And they were being prayed for actually The study that tested if prayer was real came to an interesting result. I think the people who were praying, I think the people who were prayer and the ones that knew they were being prayed for, that they actually, yes, I saw that study. I heard about that study and I heard people talking about that study. I haven't looked it up and read it myself yet. But according to what people were saying about it, you're absolutely right. The people who knew that they were being prayed for, their lives actually turned out worse. The prayer was not helpful at all. It was actually more damaging. And that's because in your mind, it's like that placebo effect. If you know you need that, what you need is if you believe that what you need is beyond your capabilities, beyond another person's capabilities to help you and change it, and that it has to come from some mystical outside force, you're usually going to sit around and not do shit about it. And your own mental thoughts are going to cause you to make poor decisions that's going to lead your life into being worse. No, I say that astrotheology only makes sense because man was trying to understand what was going on around them in nature. But it still don't make sense because even their thought processes towards astrotheology is not scientific. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, some of the metaphors works as metaphors, granted. But who I am is based on some astrotheology bullshit? No. How things happen on the planet is based on a comet coming by, that means something's about to happen? No. So none of it works. Let me tell you what works. I didn't know if I should have posted this video on this page or not, so I didn't, but I posted it on my LinkedIn, my coaching page for LinkedIn. And I did post it on my cigar page because I use that to create it. But your life, your life is the accumulation. Now I know, but astrotheology and astrology actually runs in line with each other. They're connected at the hip because it was the belief in astrotheology that, you know, if a person, the eclipse happened at this time frame, so some great woe is going to happen, or a birth of a special child, or the death of some ruler. And if you was born at this time frame, during this time frame, your life is going to lend in this direction or that direction, and so on and so forth. So astrotheology and astrology are tied to each other at the hip, right? But it's all myth and creation. The sun going into a new age during the great year doesn't mean a damn thing. We're supposed to be going into the age of Aquarius. So we're going into an age of enlightenment. Bullshit. We could be going into a dark age. If we look at the political spectrum around the world right now, we could be going into a dark age of man. If we look at the weather patterns, we could be going into a dark age of man. So, no, every day, and this gets back to my thing about the other video, every day, every person on the planet is making decisions, and all those decisions manifest different lives and different situations, and different products are manifested from it. And they affect everybody else like a damn room full of bumper cars running into each other. And some thoughts are stronger than others, some actions are stronger than others, and we just bumping. And it pushes everything around. We are literally manifesting whatever life will be based on every decision that is made. It ain't got nothing to do with where Venus is, where Mars is. This whole idea of retrograde is was a scientific mistake that was made back in the day, because they thought that the everything revolved around the Earth, and so it looked like a planet was moving backwards. But then as we became more scientifically advanced, we realized there is no such thing as retrogrades. And I don't doubt what you're saying about how you can show all these allegories and stories are about stars and constellations and zodiac. Yes, because they thought that that shit was real, but it's not real. That's my point. I'm with you. I agree with you. This is an instance where two truths are true at the same time. That is what they thought. That is how they wrote, and they thought like that. But it ain't the same. Yeah, I'm gonna still put astrology and astronomy. And I don't call what they did as really as, I mean, there was the beginnings of astronomy. They had some astronomy in it, but they were wrong on a lot of shit. But none of it has any bearing on life. This is what had all the bearings on life. Your thoughts, followed up by action. Your thoughts followed by every action that you take and everybody else's actions that they take. And people do love their fairy tales. Their fairy tales, however they may want to form them, all those fairy tales come together to make people's lives. They put their life in the hands of a fairy tale. This is why some people can't have good relationships. They believe in the fairy tale relationship. They can't have good relationship with their mother, their family, their brother, their wife, their husband, their kids, because they all looking for the damn fairy tale. What? You're about to hear your wife scream. Oh, something must be happening with that damn game. Randall, I told you to pay attention here. Now this way. You're right, Patel. Got about 15 minutes or so. I got about 15 minutes or so. That's about how much cigar we got. Right. There's more. Like when I'm teaching people about hermetics, like especially when I'm doing like one-on-one coaching with somebody, before you can, you want to pray, you can meditate, you can do all these things, but miracles don't exist. There is only cause and effect. And the things that you call in miracles, luck, or chance is causations that you don't know of. Right? Only in basketball, 3 seconds can last 15 minutes. Yes, it can. But since I know the game is probably over by now and she is very quiet, they probably lost. Yeah. Every action has a reaction. I guess they lost. The Celtics must have lost because I'm pretty sure y'all heard her. How many of y'all heard her? Raph, ain't nobody doing no free cigars. You keep on with that. I know you wish, keep wishing. Oh, you heard of that time? That is one of the things I don't like about this house. We don't like having a lot of furniture, so it's not we don't fill it up. But just the way this house is built, it reverberates sound very easily. So I'm guessing they lost. So she down there screaming at the TV. I'll be sleeping next to Angry Bird tonight. She will never be a Rockets fan. She is a diehard Celtics fan. It was perfect for the conversation with some of the craziness on it. Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yep. Football and basketball. And track and field. And UFC and boxing. And neither one of us watch baseball, so we good. I will watch golf, though. Saints. New Orleans Saints, you can get off my channel. Females among the create things we humans are simply not capable of understanding. Lean not to your own understanding. I am of the opinion that because the supreme being is not among the created things, we humans simply are not capable of understanding that kind of a mystery. First of all, I'm always going to lean to my understanding, because if you're not leaning to your understanding, then you're leaning towards somebody else's understanding. So every religion has been created by somebody, right? Every religion, somebody created it. And they created doctrines based on their understanding, and that's what most people follow. They follow. This will be a good video for tomorrow. Let me write that down real quick. So everybody's following the understanding of someone else back in the day. So if there is a God, yes, that God's level of intelligence will have to be higher than anything we can comprehend, just like there are aspects of the universe right now that we don't understand. But as we learn more and more and more about the universe, we do come to an understanding of how the universe functions. Now, if there was a God, there are certain things a creator God could not be in order for it to be God. It can't be jealous or have hatred or anger or any of those things, because then jealousy, hatred, and anger would be more powerful than that God, because it will force that God to act a certain way. So all the books of the Bible and all these other books that give their God a personality, those things cannot be God. Those ideas, that understanding of God can't be God, because it's controlled by personality. It's controlled by emotions. So for there to be a God, it would have to be beyond our understanding, but it would not be functioning in the same way that we understand how things function. So basically, I'm quoting in the long version what the Tao says. The moment you give the way a name, it is no longer the way. The moment you put it in a book, it is no longer the way. The moment you describe it, it is no longer. And in Hermetics, The all must be unknowable and undescribable. So the fact that we try to describe it demonstrates that we are not thinking on the level of what there would be a God. If this God needed worship, it's not God. If it requires worship, it's not God. If it needs love, it's not God. If it needs praise, it's not God. But what we damn sure ain't doing is gonna lean on the understanding of some people who 2,000-3,000 years ago thought that the sun goes under the earth. We ain't leaning on them. We damn sure ain't leaning on believing in a God named Yahweh who was a storm deity. That, oh, we had a storm. It must be Yahweh. Let's give some sacrifices to him. Why would I lean on a storm deity? He ain't even all that powerful. He's just a little storm deity. I'm gonna believe in Thor. Got a hammer. He's the god of lightning, or since my ancestors come from Africa, I'm gonna believe in Shango. And then he got his battle axe and he's bringing down the lightning. He ain't even all that. And we are, and the worst part is what Patel just said. We're made in the image of God, also have emotions, anger, and jealousy. So God is petty. And we're made in the image of God, and human beings are foul. They are vile. I'm not worshiping any God like that. Now, in Hermetics, the idea of being made in the image of God is only in the realm of, in the way that the all creates, and that is with thought energy. That's it. We can create a whole universe in our mind right now, and it lives for that long. The universe was created in my mind last night when I was dreaming. That universe doesn't actually exist. Those people don't exist in there. Nobody was, but they existed in my mind for that time. They had matter. They had energy. They were living, breathing, doing all kinds of things, riding four-wheelers, going to Target, climbing walls. They was doing all kinds of crazy shit in my dream last night. And one of them, and we had to have a little keypad to get into Target. You had to have one of them little key things to get into Target. And you have to climb a wall to get out of the Target. I know this is a crazy dream. Don't understand it. But those people that were in my dream, they existed in my mind for that moment. Yes. It was a whole universe inside of me. Like Rumi said, a drop of water is not the ocean, but has the ocean inside of it. And inside of it, the whole ocean is inside that drop. There was a whole universe inside my mind. If there is a creator of this universe and it's like us, I don't want to deal with that. I'm not hanging out with that dude. You can really determine God was created and inspired by man. He has the same characteristics as a human. Exactly. And then you have to think about this. I created a whole universe in my mind, right? To the universe inside my mind, I am God. Think about that for a second. To the universe inside my mind, I am God, because that universe only exists inside my mind, and I created the whole damn thing with just my thoughts. So if we are all the creation of a God inside the mind of some being, we are just a thought inside of the mind of a God, then there is something outside of that motherfucker too. We are just the dream of some God, living for an instant. It's It's an instant form of a thought to that God, but an eternity for us. But that dude or it thing, whatever it is no God. And y'all don't want to know all the thoughts that go through my head. You don't want to know some of the dreams that I've had. Some of my dreams, some of my thoughts, you want to steer very, you want to stay very far away from some of my thoughts. Because I had a thought today. Y'all don't want to, y'all want to stay away from them. And put it like this. Oftentimes I do a lot of revisionist history thinking, or alternate, I mean, not say revisionist, alternate history thinking. And I'll sit and contemplate, what would the world be like if this aspect of history changed and did something different? And for the time that I'm thinking about it, that whole universe exists inside my head. It's an interesting world. So some God up there is just as demented as I am. So when people have visions of Jesus, it's just them creating a world with their thoughts. Yes, pretty much. The mind is so powerful that it could cause you to have hallucinations. That's how powerful your mind is. You can manifest a hallucination just like you can manifest sickness and health because of the power of your mind. And if you've been told, or just been in an environment that says Jesus, 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 you're going to see Jesus, just like Muslims see Muhammad or have all these visions of Allah. It's what they believe is what they train, is what their brain says they should see. Yep, but look here, people. We at the end of the road. Starting to burn my lips. Hey, y'all appreciate this one. As Papa Lance can tell you, these are some amazing cigars. If you'd like to order some of these cigars, then just contact me at masteringyou, the number 10, at gmail.com. Also, if you would like to be able to watch the webinar that was conducted yesterday on totally deconstructing the Noah story, contact me at masteringyou, the number 10, at gmail.com. And I'll give you a way to make a payment so that you can watch it, and you'll get the link to the video. But there is a payment involved in all things. Stick a toothpick. That's what I just did. It don't matter how much you stick. You can stick these things in here. It still gets hot. If you can't pull it, it ain't worth having, my guy. I can't keep poking, but I can't pull. I think my wife would have a problem if I light up another one and keep this party going for another 2 hours. As would I, since I'm gonna see y'all tomorrow. Anyway, so we go live every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We look forward to the conversations every time. Right? Yep, I know she Angry Bird. I hear her stomping up the steps right now, walking all hard. She came up the stairs walking all hard and everything. She's probably just gonna take a shower and go to sleep. But that does it for tonight. I look forward to our next discussion tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have no idea what the conversation is going to be about yet, but I look forward to it. Thank you, everybody who's if it's your first time here. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Everybody who's a member, like Wrath, thank you for being a member. Subscription holders, thank you for being subscription holders. I appreciate every last one of you guys. And those who support the channel this way, I appreciate you guys as well. Well, y'all have a great night, and always remember you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.